Hey everybody, today we're going to be learning how to make this cool hybrid seam. Now this is a seam I've been making for a while, and you don't see it very often. It's out there, but I've never really talked about it or made a bag with it. It's kind of a combination between your basic gusset and this double seam here that I do a lot. So I'm going to walk you through making this on your own. You don't need a pattern for it. You can just make it for any bag that you want. And the nice thing about it is you get that sort of look, and you can of course do edge banding here, but it takes a lot less time because with a double seam like this, you have to sew one piece onto this and then another piece, so it's a double stitch line, whereas this is just a little bit of a corner stitch here, and the rest is just one time around. If you want to add edge banding, it looks pretty much just as nice as fancy, whereas this can look really nice. Of course, it's classic, this seam, but you don't have as much dimension as you do with something like this, and it's just a simple little addition. The first thing we're going to do is I'm just going to use a little scrap piece here. We're going to cut our gusset to width. Now for width, you want to go across the top because, as you can see on our sample here, there's a few fold marks, but this width is not going to change at all. Down here, it'll change up, but the width, this is going to be the width of the opening of your bag. So this is a 3-inch width with a shorter space here when we cut this little notch I'll show you. I'm going to show you a little wider one here to show you the different looks you can get. So whereas that's 3 inches, 1, 2, 3, 4, I'm going to do this 4 inches. Now your height here of this piece, you want to leave some extra. How much extra is going to be dependent on what your specific pattern calls for, but I'm going to give you the rough way to sort of size this. What we're going to do is we're going to cut flaps. So we have sort of a notch taken out of this piece like this. How do you get the measurements for your flaps? Well, the first thing is the width of your flaps themselves are going to equate to the bottom measurement of your bag. I like to keep it between 1 inch, 3/4 inch to 1 inch. Since our flaps are going to wrap around, these need to be long enough, and I like to skive and overlap mine. So what I like to do is I have a 4-inch wide strip, 3/4 inch on either side is 1.5 inches. So I have 2.5 inches in the middle. That is going to be my flat section, is going to be 2.5 inches wide. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to take a 1/2 inch off of that, but it's more of a percentage. You kind of just want to take like 20% off. That'll give you a little bit of a trim allowance, and you'll be able to skive. So we're going to go up to 2 inches here. I'm going to make a mark at 3/4 inch, and I'm going to make a mark at 3¼ inches, and then I'm just going to connect them, just like that. Then, using the marks on my cutting board, I'm going to make a line for my 3/4 inch, and you can do that. Most metal rulers are 1.25 inches, so instead of lining it up on the line to trace, you just line it up on the back line and then trace the front, and that gives you the 3/4 inch that you need. The way this is going to work is we're going to fold one piece like this, one piece like this, and stitch, and then when we flip it out, we will have our nice seam there. Now you can see we have a lot of extra here. I'm going to find the center on my cutting board, roughly, doesn't have to be perfect, and we need to skive and make a little overlap here. So this is going to be the center. It's going to be the center here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to give myself about 1/2 inch of overlap. So to do that, we're going to go 1/4 inch to either side of these center lines, and that'll make a 1/2 inch total. And we can cut everything else off. So we're going to use our skiving knife here, get this nice, simple, straight cut, like that, and like that. Then I'm going to go in and skive about 1/2 inch to the end. Now if this happens, right here, you can see we skived a little too much off. That's totally fine, unless you skive way too much off. But you can, if you know this happens on one side, we can make up for it on the other side by just being really careful. Now, of course, if you do that on both sides, you got to redo it. But you can see here, I'll just tuck that to the back, and we'll have absolutely no problem gluing that together. To glue this up, I'm going to fold in the part that has the back side of the leather glued, and the part that has the front side, I'm going to fold that over top of that. And we'll just press that down. We'll be left with something that looks something like that. Now we're going to glue this up, and we're just going to take a little bit of glue here. And we're going to do about 2 millimeters in of glue because my stitch distance from the edge is 3 millimeters, and we don't want any of this glue showing after we stitch it up. That's all it takes. We'll go ahead and stick that. Press it down. We're ready to stitch. Once we have this all sewn up, I'm just going to use my flat knife and do a little trim. Get it nice and even. Go. To get this ready to glue in to your bag, you can see I've started folding. First thing we're going to do is we're going to take our sewn edge, we're going to fold that out. Now, I like for this job to use a little set of, I don't actually even know what these are called, but they're just a simple cobbler's tool. You can get them for 10 bucks on Amazon. And what this will do is by squeezing the back and the side, it'll give a nice crisp right angle right there. Then we're going to fold these over. You can see I've started doing that. I like to fold them with my hands first and then go in with this, or you can go in with a roller, or you can go with a quarter pounder or hammer, and we're just going to lightly squeeze. You don't want to crank down on this because you could actually hurt the leather. Now this is a combo tanned pull-up leather from Newbury Leathers, and so this can handle this sort of 180-degree bend over, but some leathers you need to oil or wet before you do this. If you use a good cement, you don't have to use any clips. It's not difficult. This is one of my favorite parts about this seam. It just glues like a flat piece. Just like that. And then of course you would just sew around here, and in return you get something like this. Now you can see the difference. You can mess with the dimension that this piece gives by deciding how wide you want your flat piece, how wide you want your gusset. You can see here this looks a little bit more like a traditional bag. This looks more like a shaving kit or a tool kit or something like that. But all you would do, stitch around the whole thing. You have this nice overlap joint at the bottom so that the bag is totally sealed and you're not going to have this peeling apart or anything. You can just do it split down the middle, as I said. I tend to like it a little more like this. And that's what you're going to get. So I've been using the seam a whole bunch. I think it's a really nice sort of mix of a double seam, which takes a lot longer to make and can be a lot more expensive and maybe not in your customer's budget or in the amount of time that you want to take to make a bag. But it also looks a little bit more refined, we'll say, than just a traditional. There's nothing wrong with just a traditional, gusset seam, but I kind of like this. It gives a little dimension, makes it a little nicer. That's going to be it. So thank you guys so much for watching. We'll see you in the next one.